Hello, everyone, and welcome back a final time to the YouTube audiobook series for The Snake and the Rose, written by Abby Matthias. I am Darius, and today I will be introducing the last chapter and the epilogue, because both of them are not that short and it can be combined into one. Um, on behalf of everyone in The Snake and the Rose and the author, we appreciate you listening and following along with this story. And I'm assuming you already know there's going to be a second book. We just don't know when it's going to be published to the public. But watch out for it because it'll come sometime this year still. I won't do that to you. We won't do that to you. But if you need to catch up with chapter 28, links in the description below. But if you are all caught up and ready to go, we will move on to the final chapter and epilogue. Chapter 29, Breaking Barriers, and Epilogue, Something More.
The first day that Darius had the bounding cuffs wasn't ultimately that bad. There was no loss of control or spontaneous movement. It was more like a warm-up period for him to get used to the cuffs around his wrist. But, of course, that was only the first day. Any time after that, the cuffs acted up unwittingly. Some days were worse than others, while some were mild. The violent actions varied from random arm swings to him being slammed into the wall across the room and having the wind knocked out of him. There were even a couple times where he was actually pinned and unable to move for multiple minutes at a time. Sadly, there were a few instances where he was beaten to the point his body bled, and I had to help bandage him up. However, when it came to the targeted attacks towards me, Darius always managed to create a force field surrounding my body for protection. He didn't do anything to protect himself, yet there wasn't any way for him to defend himself because of the cuffs. No matter what he did, he couldn't break away from his punishment. I do have to admit that I despised seeing Darius in severe distress when the cuffs acted up. Yet, I don't think he really cared about himself at this point in time. I could tell his main priority was to keep me safe. So I couldn't, and didn't, want to argue with him upon that. Now, I could continue on talking about the pain and suffering involving my demon's consequences. The list is endless. However, Darius wouldn't want me to reflect too much upon that subject. So instead, I'll change the topic to Damien and I. After our date that we had on the 27th of September, he has talked to me every day since then. We even went on another dinner date during that first week we became an official couple. Before anyone says anything, yes, I heard Darius being thrown all over the place during the date as well. I didn't see it as all the actions took place behind me. I obviously still felt awful about what was happening with him. Yet, throughout that date, he kept reassuring me within my head that he was okay in order to ease my worries away. But besides that, this was truly the happiest I have ever been, and it was because of Darius's help. Also, another reason why I was so happy was because of the spooky season, aka Halloween. It was finally October, and I was excited to dress up and cosplay with my Halloween costume. For my costume this year, I told my demon I wanted to do something different than my usual cosplay outfits. So, he threw a couple suggestions out there, such as Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. I wasn't a huge fan of any of those ideas, but with a little bit of brainstorming, I came up with my perfect Halloween idea. What did I decide, you may ask? A demon. Yep. I hear your brain trying to process why I would choose that instead of a different character. It definitely wouldn't have been Darius's first choice, for he already knew what it was like to actually be one. I would have been in the same boat as him if it were a couple months ago. But this was a way for me to express myself creatively, semi-cope with everything, and entertain others, including myself. So, I planned my design and made a wish list so I could buy everything within the next few weeks. Anyhow, it was October 2nd, and I was working on an animation project that I had due in a couple weeks for one of my college classes. It was around 5 o'clock, and Darius was nowhere to be seen, which confused me a little. He normally appeared an hour after I woke up and stayed with me for most of the day. I mean, he does take a brief break to himself between noon and 1 in the afternoon, but I only saw him from 8 this morning to about 11. Yet just because he was gone for longer didn't mean I was going to tell him what he could and couldn't do. If he wanted to be alone for a longer period of time, it was fine. He was still a person who deserved the freedom to roam and do what he wanted. I was also by no means in any danger, so I left him be. I still had nothing to fear, for after I was frustrated out of my mind and exhausted from working on my project for so long, a special person of mine decided to call me. So upon reading the caller ID, I pressed the answer button and placed the phone to my ear. "Hello, you've reached the girlfriend hotline. How may I assist you today?" I teased.
Oh, yes, hi. I was wondering if I could get in contact with my sweetheart through you. She goes by the name of Abby. She has beautiful black and red hair, the loveliest pair of chocolate eyes, and a dazzling smile that knocks my socks off.
Damien replied back, going along with the skit. "Wow, you must have found yourself a keeper. I'll check to see if she's in and connect you right away." After that, I couldn't help but break character and laugh, which of course led him to laughing as well. So eventually, after our comedy session, Damien continued on with our conversation.
Hey,
"Hey Damien, how are you?"
I'm not too shabby, Abby. Better now that I know you're not overworking yourself.
"And what's that supposed to mean? How did you know I was working on homework? Was this a part of your elaborate plan to distract me?"
Maybe, maybe not. I guess you'll never know. But to be honest, I know how much you overwork yourself on homework, so I figured I would give you a reason to take a break, even if it's for a couple minutes.
"Aw, well, look at you being a compassionate gentleman," I said, leaning back in my computer chair.
What can I say? I've waited a long time to be your gentleman, and I like showing you my compassion.
At that remark, I began to feel my face starting to blush as the recognizable warmth was spreading throughout my cheeks. He finally admitted that he has liked me for a while. He just kept all those feelings suppressed into himself. But for how long? "You have? How long have you waited for me?" I asked, having my curiosity get the best of me.
Well, I would say it started at freshman year of high school. Obviously, I wasn't sure about those feelings at the time, and I didn't know how to react to them. I was young and stupid like any other teenage boy. But
He paused, sounding hesitant. "But what?"
I started accepting the feelings around the time you started to date that loser of a nobody. Yes, he seemed great at the time, and I thought I lost my shot. However, things changed. I wasn't going to force you to do anything you didn't want to do, but I did pray that you would make the right choice to live a better and healthier life.
First of all, I was stunned by everything he said. He actually prayed for me when I knew fully Damien wasn't a firm believer in religion. And another thing, I understood his point on not wanting to act upon his feelings too early. I should understand that more than anyone. I might have learned that the hard way. But I will never make that mistake again, especially if Damien is my significant other. Well, I think you and me can both agree that I took a turn for the better after everything with Lazy Boy, I finally said, replying to him.
Absolutely. I wouldn't want it any other way. But I would like to ask you something while I am on the phone with you.
Ask away. What's up?
You think we could hang out with Darla again sometime soon? I haven't seen her in a while and thought it would be cool if we all caught up, as long as that's okay with you. I don't want you to get jealous or get a weird vibe for me asking that.
Damien, I know you better than that. Of course we can hang out with Darla again. I haven't talked to her in a bit either, so I think that is a brilliant idea. I said, telling a little less than a half-truth. Just then, as if he was listening, Darius teleported out of nowhere and scared the crap out of me. I gasped and jumped in my chair for a moment, and Damien heard my panic.
Abby, what's going on? Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm fine. My peripherals made a illusion like someone was in my room, but it was just my hair. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to alarm you, I said, still staring at my demon, who was silently apologizing.
It's alright. You just scared me there for a second. Well, on that note, I will let you get back to your schoolwork and stop distracting you. I love you, Abby.
I love you too, Damien. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Once the call ended, I laid my phone down on my desk to confront Darius. What the hell, man? You scared the life out of me. Can you still see the life in my eyes? I started to chuckle after that slight joke, but I quickly stopped after examining his expression. For as I looked upon his face, he expressed a face of sorrow while he was holding his sides. Hey, I wasn't trying to scold you. Are you okay? I asked, getting up from my chair.
Yeah, I'm fine.
He said, closing his eyes. I didn't believe him for a second. He never displayed his vulnerability like this in front of me. He appeared as if he was in pain while being disappointed. Lastly, no one just holds their sides for no reason. So there was something bigger that was amiss here. Darius, I said with a concerned and serious tone. You can tell me what's wrong. Maybe I can help. Even though I offered my aid to him, he just started shaking his head to me. Even though I offered my aid to him, he just started shaking his head to me and replied,
There's nothing you can do to help. It's just another day in paradise.
Well, what is that supposed to mean? What happened? I noticed you were gone longer than normal.
Wait, what time is it?
He said frantically. Responding to his freakout, I tapped on my phone to display the time of 5:30 p.m. I read the time aloud, and he reacted once more to it.
I was stuck with that bastard for 4 hours?
Wait, you were stuck? I asked, slightly panicked. If that was true, that would explain why he was gone for so long today. Yet I didn't care about the time. I cared more about his physical well-being. I wanted to know what exactly happened to him in case he needed some sort of medical attention or assistance. So I stood silently in order for him to speak.
Yes, I was. I started out in my house down in hell just minding my own business. I was having a drink and reading more of my powers book when suddenly these stupid cuffs acted up again and dragged me all the way to Satan's office.
You have an actual house down in hell? I asked, a little distracted by that fact.
Yes, but it's nothing special though. I'm sorry, but that isn't really important at this moment.
You're right. Sorry. I got sidetracked by that little fact. Anyhow, do you mean like you were physically dragged or they pulled you to him? Is that why you're holding your sides?
Not exactly. My sides were already hurting since this morning when I woke up. I'm assuming they're probably sore from how much I got jerked around yesterday. But to get back to the original question, I was dragged so fast that my feet weren't even touching the ground. It was like flying in midair, except my wrists were being yanked so hard by the cuffs that it felt like my arms were about to rip off my body.
Do I need to help bandage you again? Was there any bleeding involved?
No. I checked already and my skin is fine.
Well, at least that's a plus. After that statement, I allowed a moment of silence to fill the air so we both could settle our emotions a bit. No one was in great danger anymore, and there were no wounds to mend. I knew we were both shaken a bit by all the information we gained from each other, but I wasn't quite done with my interrogation per se. So after about a minute or so, I started to talk again. What happened in his office? What did he want? He stared right into my face with his red eyes after I spoke and displayed a confused look.
You really want to know? This kind of stuff isn't your cup of tea, if you get what I mean.
I know it isn't, but I figured if you gained some more information about being a protector demon, or even about what is happening between us, you would like to tell me.
Abby, I didn't really get that much. This interaction was pretty much a torture and mockery session.
Upon his statement, I saw his face begin to grow mad, but also remorseful at the same time. So I decided to try and defer his mind from that interaction. You don't have to tell me exactly what happened between you two. I just want to know if there was any sort of knowledge that you obtained from that conversation.
There were no definite answers. However, I do have some of my own theories I developed from the interaction.
Well, they're better than nothing. Care to explain?
Sure. But first, can we go in the cosplay room? There's a little more open space in there since you cleaned it yesterday.
If that's what you want, then I guess, yeah. After that request, I walked over to the door to travel next door into the cosplay room. I entered the room first, and he ended up closing the door behind him to give us more privacy and quietness from the rest of the house. Dad was working in the garage on car maintenance while Mom was having a girls' night out. Regardless, though, once we were both situated in our usual spots, he started to elaborate upon his theories.
It has come abundantly clear that Satan knows that something out of the ordinary is happening between us because of the kind of relationship you and I have.
I agree with that. That would make sense considering he's stated you're the only human demon to be allowed up here, and no other protector demon has been paired up with the opposite gender before.
Exactly. Those two facts still throw me off quite a bit. It's already bad enough that I was the only demon with a gradient skin tone. But now adding all of those on top of that just complicates it further.
And let me guess, Satan hasn't explained anything to you about the fire or muscle power you have.
Well, it's kinda hard for him to do so if I don't show those powers to him.
But he already knows about the firepower because of the last time he was up here. Yet more importantly, are you telling me he doesn't know about the muscle growth?
No, he doesn't, and I would like it to stay that way. As in regards to the firepower, he didn't tell me anything. But again, I don't want to expose my powers to him unless it's necessary.
Well, I don't blame you for that, and I won't say anything. After my reply, I began to reflect for a brief moment on how strong Darius had to be in order to do that. If some of his powers were triggered by his emotions, he would have had to really keep himself in check whenever he was around Satan. I mean, if he did it for this long, he could handle it for longer, right? Yet, there is only so much torture and emotional damage someone can take before they break down. If it especially came down to protecting me, he would have to truly defer his mind to just keep the muscle growth at a minimum. But now add that fatherly love that Darius somehow had for me, it only made things more difficult for him. However, just as I was in the middle of thinking, I heard a grunt of pain come from Darius's mouth. What's wrong? Is it the soreness? I asked, now displaying a little bit of my worry. As I looked upon him, his eyes were squinted shut as he was hunched over himself. His arms clung to his sides tightly in anguish as he was trying to find his words.
I don't know. The pain in my sides.
What about it? Is it spreading to your back and stomach?
No. It's getting worse. Intensifying.
After his statement, Darius started to clench his hands onto the problematic areas of his body and started to really groan in agony. His body reeled and slammed into my dresser a bit as his suffering continued. As I was stuck watching this scene, I quickly reacted by walking to his side and grabbed his arm to support him.
Abby.
He cried. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere, I said, determined. However, my demon did not take my response very kindly.
No, I don't want you near me. Something's happening to me and I refuse to have you get harmed in any way, shape, or form.
I won't get hurt. I'm not letting you go through this alone. Despite my determination to aid him, Darius brought up his force field and enclosed my body within it. Once that barrier was formed, he started moving it away from himself to force me backwards. I was unable to phase through the protective dome as I tried banging my arms against it to break the shield. Yet I failed to do any damage. I was like a spider caught under a cup, and only allowed to witness what was happening to my demon from inside my protective wall. Darius, no! I began to cry out. My screaming didn't help with anything, though, despite how desperate I sounded. I was still left to watch the pain overwhelm his body to the point where he was yelling his head off. I could tell he wasn't trying to, and tried refraining himself from uttering any noises. However, the agonizing pain that he was enduring wouldn't stop. As this continued on, I heard the sounds of bones shifting and popping into place. I couldn't tell what was happening, but I stared at my demon intently to see the end result. Eventually, Darius had to hold himself up and let go of his sides in order to grip my dresser. Upon that action, I could see his veins starting to pop out of his arms because of how tightly he was clenching his hands. But after about 30 seconds, there were suddenly 2 stubs protruding from his shirt. Yet, it didn't take long for them to rip through and reveal another pair of arms had grown out of Darius's sides. Once they were fully extended and formed, my demon stopped screaming and started breathing sighs of relief while the pain subsided. Despite the ending of his suffering, his worries and concerns raised back up quickly as they showed upon his face. As he looked upon himself, the force field abruptly disappeared and I stood in place, unable to speak. The sight I just witnessed was freshly burned into my memory and was something my brain would never let me forget. I never thought a thing like this could even happen. My heart was pounding from the adrenaline and fret of the situation. Darius now miraculously had another pair of arms, which seemed impossible. How could someone just grow arms out of the blue like that? I mean, this was the demon world, and I guess literally anything is possible within it. However, I wasn't concerned about my questions at this point in time. I was more hyper-focused on Darius as he began to hyperventilate and express himself in ways I never seen him before.
What in the hell is this?
He exclaimed. As his original pair of arms stayed raised in confusion, the new pair slowly started to display themselves in front of him. They were an exact replica of the first, in every shape and measurement. The only difference was that they were placed in between his original arms and waist. They were almost dead center in the middle between them. I was somewhat fascinated and in awe by this new development. Yet, I had a feeling that our roles were flipped this time around when it came to Darius and I reacting to difficult situations. I haven't the slightest clue, but that would be the reason why you were in so much pain, I stated, responding back to him. Based on his facial expression, I knew he wasn't pleased with my statement. However, he just kept stuttering and mumbling over his words because of the amount of shock he was in. Nothing came out of his mouth that was coherent or understandable. As this phenomenon continued, his breaths were becoming very violent to where I grew fearful that he was going to pass out, so I decided to speak up and step towards him. Hey, I know this is sudden and a little nerve-wracking, but your breathing is...
Don't come any closer, please.
He shouted.
I don't want to hurt you.
As he yelled, I shuffled my weight to my back foot from being taken aback. My eyes started to observe his body movement, and they saw him starting to shake because of the hysteria settling in. I couldn't believe that he was in this much of a panic because of this one incident. He has never reacted in such a way before, and this was a scary sight to see. He was always displaying that tough facade that he talked about and never showed this side of himself. However, this drove him over the edge. His emotions that he bottled up over time was finally popped open and spilling everywhere. And knowing that, I decided to proceed with caution, not to shake him up any more than what he already was. Darius, I know you better than that. You're not going to hurt me. You don't have it in you to do so.
I may not. But what about these arms? I don't even know how they are controlled or even who is controlling them. What if this is another one of Satan's punishments?
I understand your worry, but I have a feeling that the arms have nothing to do with him. I think it's something else you gain spontaneously. This has to be something that goes along with your muscle or firepower.
What, how, and why? This isn't normal, Abby, and you know it. Since when does anyone grow an extra pair of arms? The anatomy is unrealistic. There's something deeply wrong with me.
There's nothing wrong with you, I said. Why would you assume that?
Look at me, Abby.
He said, gesturing to me. Upon his action, the bottom pair of arms followed in a copycat with his upper ones. His whole body tensed for a few seconds after realizing the movement, and his eyes flinched shut. Eventually, though, he managed to get a hold of himself and continued talking.
You were already hesitant and weary of me without these unfathomable changes. Now I am more of a freak to you.
If you think that I am afraid of you because of this, you're absolutely wrong, I said back with a serious tone. His face grew shocked upon my remark while he gazed at me with panicked eyes. Once we made eye contact, I knew he was focused on me, and I slowly made my way to stand in front of him. I didn't have a problem with you before, and this doesn't change anything. I may have had a hard time first trying to adjust to the change of having a demon, but that has changed since the beginning. I've grown to like you for who you are, regardless of how you look. Remember the famous phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover"? That's exactly how I am treating this partnership between you and I. It's not about your appearance. It's about your actions, and I realize that. You have proven yourself to be good despite your demonic features, your horns, your nails, your red skin. I know you care about me, and I care about you. I still remember what you told me on the night Satan gifted those cuffs to you. I recall you saying how being with me has given you a chance to be a father again. Yes, we both know you're not my biological dad, and we are nowhere near related. However, that doesn't change anything because I can't help but think of you as another father to me as well. After my rant, I reflected back upon my words, and I couldn't believe what I said. Everything that came out of my mouth was true. Yet what shocked me the most was that I officially said that to my demon. A prodigy of Satan whose duties is to obey his creator and bask in the evil deeds they create. However, Darius was not just an ordinary demon. He was a human, tricked by the devil himself, and was foolishly trapped into this evil stereotype. He wasn't the bad guy in this scenario. He was my protector demon who actually cared about me. This entire circumstance has finally made me come to terms with that reality. He was showing his vulnerability, expressing how much he deeply cares about me, and physically shows me how he wants to protect me. With all of the facts coming together within this very moment, all of my mental barriers I had involving him came tumbling down that surrounded me for so long. This sudden realization had brought everything to light. He has proven himself to be the one thing that other demons can't say for themselves. He wasn't corrupt. He has spent 13 years around the forces of evil and has still remained innocent and kind. His human-like morals triumphed over everything demonic or satanic. Even though his physical attributes had changed because of his forsaken deal, deep down within that demon body, there was a kind human being stuck forever within a devilish appearance. And now this kind soul is like a father figure to me while I was like a daughter to him. I couldn't even deny that fact. So as my mind processed the sudden epiphany, I lifted my head to Darius again, wide-eyed. Though when I appeared at his face, I took in quite a sight. For as I looked upon my demon with compassion, I saw his eyes start to shed tears. His breathing was scattered, but he tried his hardest to continue breathing smoothly.
You really mean that?
He said, trying to keep his composure. Yes, of course I do. I know it seems crazy, but every word is true. We were paired together for a reason, and I wouldn't want any other way. I love you, Darius. As those words floated in the air, my demon's eyes began to tear some more. He began to smile while his expression shifted into extreme happiness. Upon the mood change, I too started to smile as my heart started to fill with joy. I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted off of our shoulders. We both confessed feelings that we've been repressing for a while. We were confronting our emotions together and settling our differences. This was going to be the start of a new kind of relationship between him and I. A partnership that would revolve around fatherly and daughterly love. Regardless that this man wasn't my true father, I was more than okay with having him as another dad. Even if no one would ever know about it, I couldn't have asked for a better demon. I was more than delighted at this point to say I had a protector demon that held a special place within my heart. As his tears kept running down his face, his new pair of arms shot forward and grabbed my sides. We both gasped at the sudden action while the arms were still moving. Yet after the gentle grab, They lifted me slightly to raise my feet off the ground and pulled me closer to him. Once I was practically touching him, his arms wrapped around my back and pressed me gently against his body for a hug. Now, I felt his stomach and chest rising and falling in panic while I saw his original arms raised in fright.
Oh my fuck. I am so sorry. I didn't do that. Are you okay? Did they hurt you?
Darius, I'm fine. They were very gentle. I told you they wouldn't hurt me.
But they acted on their own. How is that fine? It's forcing you into a hug that you don't want. And another thing.
And he officially began to go on into another rant. But I wasn't worried about what he was saying. It didn't matter if he didn't intend for this to happen or if he did. His arms spoke more than his words. The important thing here, though, was that I was comfortable and happy his arms were showing his emotions. So without saying a word, I took my arms and wrapped them around his back to return the embrace while turning my head sideways to lay it flat on the bottom of his chest. Soon after I did that, he stopped talking, and I heard the rustle of his shirt as he moved his head downward towards me. His top arms also lowered down, and I started to feel his hands hesitantly start to touch my upper back and shoulder blades. So as he was caught within the hugging trance, I spoke one final time. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I love you, Darius. After my statement, he fully gave in and fell to his emotions as well. He completed the hug by wrapping his top arms around me tightly and leaned his head down towards the top of mine.
I love you too, Abby.
He said softly. So as we stood within our affectionate embrace, after 6 months of being together, we were both finally grateful for each other and allowed our differences to bring us closer together.
As usual, I sat at my desk filing paperwork and waited for others to check in for their appointments. It was just an average day, and time was flying by fast. Demons were mingling in the common areas, and the guards kept their eyes peeled open for intruders and threats. However, my day was brought to worry and crashed a little when I heard Satan screaming from the top floor where his office was. So, grabbing my clipboard with his agenda and some extra paper to write on, I charged myself all the way to the 5th floor. As I approached his door, it was slightly cracked open so the soundproofing didn't take effect. I could hear the sounds of scrolls crinkling and unraveling while he was mumbling to himself. I knew something was driving him mad, and he was bound to tell me why. I was the closest thing he had besides his wives. Without me, he would be extremely lost within his job. Even though I had a higher ranking as Satan's assistant, he still treated me like dirt along with everyone else. So, swallowing hard, I decided to slowly open the door to investigate the scene. Upon the sight, I seen books and scrolls scattered all over the room. Some appeared to be unraveled, while others appeared to be torn into pieces or crumpled into a ball. Glancing at Satan's desk, I seen him standing hunched over another scroll as he ran his finger along the page and mumbled the words to himself. His sleeves were rolled up while the top button of his shirt was undone. As I looked upon him with confusion, I knew that this was the sight of a man who was letting something eat him alive. An idea or concept that was tampering with his life that he couldn't let go. So as I stood in the doorway, I decided to try and break his concentration. Sir? What's wrong? I heard you yell all the way from the bottom floor. After that, he snapped his head to me in fury. His eyes examined my stature from head to toe as he realized who I was. And once that information was processed, he lifted his hand up and used one of his powers to drag me into the room and closed everything. The door, the curtains, the cabinets, the desk drawers. Anything that was open slammed shut on his command, including my mouth. I saw him continuing to breathe heavily as he started talking.
Of course there is something wrong.
He screamed.
That motherfucker knows something that I don't.
Who knows something that you don't? I asked in confusion.
Darius Stone.
Wait, your previous deal maker? Wasn't he transferred to the Protector Demon program?
Yes, exactly. That conniving shithead is gaining powers that he shouldn't be gaining.
What do you mean? Protector Demons obtain powers because of their job. And I thought you weren't involved with the Protector Demon system.
I'm not. He's my prized deal, and I have every right to check in on my property. But luckily, I do. He's gained rare powers such as fire. Another thing to add, on top of that, his human is gaining powers as well.
I stood in shock for a very brief moment. Satan was truly having a hard time with his prized deal-made demon being a protector demon. I can still recall the day Satan came back to hell with Darius and told me he was going to be the deal-maker from there on out. From that point, he told me everything about that deal he made with the human and proceeded to include the terms and conditions they agreed upon. Every last detail was burned into my memory, and I was repulsed by it. I didn't like the circumstances he made one bit, and it seemed like Darius was an honest man just trying to help his son. Yet I wasn't going to say what was right and what was wrong. I kept my feelings mutual in order to continue having a life. So as always, I kept my opinions to myself and asked more questions. So that's why your room is a disaster? Because you're trying to find answers?
Yes. I need to find out what is happening between Darius Stone and Abby Davis. There is something bigger happening here that I don't know about. But I can't let him see my frustration. I refuse to have him see me like this. I will find out what is going on between them two, even if I have to continue torturing myself like this. Either he will tell me, or shit is going to hit the fan.
Once he was done with his rant, he walked to the other side of his desk and opened a drawer to grab a different kind of scroll. As he held it out, I seen there was a golden ribbon tied in the middle of it, keeping it shut. He pulled on the string to undo the tie, and upon doing so, it revealed a page with writing and a signature down at the bottom. From just the glimpse of it, I knew it was the deal Darius made unknowingly with Satan. So as we both stared at the contract, Satan laid it flat on his desk and spoke one final time.
Darius Stone holds a more significant role within this demon realm of mine. Now it's time to figure out what it is. This has been Chapter 29, an epilogue from the book The Snake and the Rose. Again, thank you all very much for following along with this book. Thank you for supporting the channel, and we love you. Thank you all very much. We can't even thank you enough. And be on the lookout for the second book. I'm Darius, and I conclude this book. Thank you all for watching.